Had Thomas Jefferson and his collaborators said, quote, dedicated to the proposition that all humans are equal, end quote, not created, endowed by Creator, inalienably righted by, or whatever the theocratic deist mumbo-jumbo might have been for the defenders of him who say he didn't specify the Christian God, Creator, I don't care. A Creator will do or not do for me. Had he said that, had the United States been founded as a country with no slavery, I would be impressed. That would have been a revolution. It wasn't, and I'm not. Had Ralph Nader been invited to the presidential debate in 2000? Had Jill Stein been invited in 2023? I'd nod and agree. A sort of democracy was 2024. I'd nod and agree. And a sort of democracy had been threatened on January the 6th. They weren't, so it wasn't. Had Joe Biden said on October the 8th, Bibi, sorry, we love you, but no, you can't do this, no more bombs. Had Kamala not repeated the New York Times fiction as justification for continuing what Biden had done, I'd have voted Democrat. Very simple. So many things I would have done, but clowns got in my way. I would still be miffed, disappointed by America's relentless bragging without reason, its assumed supremacy, rooted in the inferiority complex characteristic of European settler colonials since forever, who make homes where they don't belong, not because they're not welcome, but because they never think to ask, seldom pay more than beads, and from then till now force ceaseless wars and proxy wars, genocides, and all the happy horseshit shows its historians and media shovels at us 24/7, revised and unredressed. The thing I'm trying to come to terms with is the notion of life as a nomadic thing. It's a certain attitude towards land and the people who inhabit it. It's not so much that the Oglala insisted that the land was theirs. It was that it was nobody's. It's not there to be owned. And that's our habit. Yes. I'd still enjoy the most mixed culture in history, like I do now, and I'd know what a gift this is and how easily we take it for granted. I'd rely on and be grateful for the hospitality of the people whose land I am on, and pay it forward to the next wave of tired, huddled masses with or without college degrees. I'd say the way ahead was to make of this community an us instead of a them, and work very hard for that. I'd suggest that if you don't like abortions, you probably shouldn't get one. If you don't want to vaccinate or wear a mask, stay home. That you are part of a community no matter which fantasy of selfhood you believe. That your right to be constantly afraid shall not be infringed. But if you kill another person because of that fear, you will be a murderer. None of your fears, damnations, fixations, and bigotries are related in any way to freedom. They are all self-imposed restraints upon it, on you, which leads to your wanting to impose them on us. As life gets less and less meaningful, less creative, all that's left is money. Your gym membership might keep you tight, but your psyche is obese. You are suffering, but we can't really wait for you to realize it. Because Thomas Jefferson was afraid to abolish American slavery in his newly stolen nation, because he feared the repercussions of treating native peoples and Africans so horrifically, doesn't justify his governorship nor the cowardice that did attend it. Because Thomas Jefferson desperately needed to believe in the inherent superiority of him and his to the rest of mankind doesn't clear his name in history, and those who idolize him and call him father are only sustaining these his central delusions, his self-evident truths. It should be and is said that these views of other peoples were typical of the time. They were still awful. The need to believe that way about anybody is pathetic. And they still are a little inch below the surface. I'm a European, and we subtly still assume what Jefferson did, perhaps with a slight and irritating guilt. We have pored over the books that make us good, the Enlightenment we make such a fuss over, without just looking at the evidence, what followed hard upon and quickly for 300 years, and what happened outside our door. The Enlightenment that advises the powerful assumes a one-way street, that as many as possible should learn our language. There is nothing to learn from them. It is the founding assumption of our churches, morphing neatly into our universities, and the hierarchies we insist upon and pay ourselves accordingly. It is elitist, antonym of populist. I think what I am up against is that once indoctrinated in anything, we are never the same again. It is terrible hard to return, to go back. Somebody said the other day, a born Muslim. Now, with all due respect, you're not. Nobody's born any of those belief systems. You can be born into it. It can happen pretty quick, but you're not born that way. None of us really belong to any tribe beyond a certain point. That point is adulthood. At least when we join the tribe of life, the big one. Be assured the elites are as tribal as the Bantu. The rituals are just much flimsier. Unfortunately, at this time, my lifeline to my cultural tribal values is fraying indeed. It's ready to break. As I jettison off, the growing space between where I was and am is filled with life, with work and love and exploration. My school was all in my encounters with the world. My school was high school till middle teens, then out into it. The church, synagogue, temple, what have you, brought us a nation of self-improvement, an apprenticeship for something, a notion of self-improvement, an apprenticeship for something that eventually faded and became the goal itself. Priests were the first corporate professional managers, or professional corporate managers. I can't remember which. There are places of mystery where we can go and study and etc. But study what? To what end? What is the point of making a piece of theatre that is incomprehensible to anyone not schooled correctly? There is the Narcissus of Hesse, not to be confused with the boy and his pool. But there was also Goldmund, the one who lived and did not study in a tower, studied in life. The life reflective is okay, but depressing, arid, and as we have seen so violently in the last decade or so, it is really not very useful. Life's an encounter, or millions of them. Am I prepared for these brushes, or trained to avoid them?